Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Deku Was the Sun Hero. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. An obstacle race. The first year students chorused as they looked at the display screen. The course will be one full lap around the stadium. The total length is 4 kilometers. As you all know, UA High's selling point is freedom. Midnight gave a sadistic look as she licked her lips. There were only 2 rules. First, you have to run the entire course. No shortcuts or you'll be disqualified. The pro cracked her whip towards the first years. The second rule, no attacking other students. Messing with the field to your advantage is fine, direct attacks are not. Other than that, everything goes. You know the rules now, little listeners. Play fair and get back here first to be the winner. Break either of the 2 rules and you're out of the festival completely. President Mick called out through the stadium speakers. Now, then, take your places, everyone. Midnight yelled, making the crowd cheer as the first event was about to begin. The students began to move to the tunnel that marked the starting line. Izuku and Toga stood side by side as they waited for the race to begin. They gave each other a warm, but competitive, smile as they got ready. Izuku briefly glanced around at the rest of the students. The Hero Course students all looked determined and prepared. The reminder that their seats were up for grabs seemed to have lit a fire in the 40 students. He saw the same determination in a few other students from different courses. The one with the most profound look was the purple-haired teen that had made the declaration of war against Class 1A. The countdown to begin started as the first of 3 lights, a red light, went out. I wonder what the prize is for winning this race. Izuku mused briefly. It wouldn't be out of character for the sports festival for the winner of the first event to be given something for the next round. Or would the prize actually be a detriment? He wouldn't put it past UA to make success another trial. The second light yellow this time went out. No time to wonder about it now, I'll just do my best. Izuku grinned as his body bulked up and heat began radiating from his form. The final light, a green light, flashed on. Start. Both Midnight and Mick yelled at the same time. In an instant every student rushed forward. Izuku took a single leap and cleared the entire crowd faster than most could notice. Toga playfully rolled her eyes as her boyfriend rocketed with a burst of his ridiculous strength. Okay. Let's check out the action. Are you ready to give commentary, Eraser? President Mick asked Aizawa. I'm still not sure why I had to be up here in the first place. Aizawa trolled out. We'll get started right away, Eraser. What should the crowd pay attention to in the first few minutes of the race? Mick continued as if Aizawa hadn't lamented being there. The moves made right in this opening section will be important. Aizawa commented as he watched all of the first years rush into the narrow tunnel. Inside the tunnel, yelling and shouting began as the participants were squeezed together. Trying to run through the tunnel at the same time was proving impossible. It was far too narrow for all of them to pass through at once, and many realized that it had been designed this way on purpose. This was clearly a test of ingenuity to see how they'd get through and take a lead in the race. A sudden drop in temperature made the majority of the students start shivering. The floor was covered in a sheet of ice, and most of the first years' shoes froze over, sticking them in place. Several dozen calls of alarm, or outright accusations of cheating, rang out as Todoroki ran past the immobilized students. Sorry, but I have to win this race. Todoroki stated while leaving a trail of ice right behind him. It would make it hard for those that freed themselves to walk, much less run, to try and catch up. Like hell, isn't it? Bakugo roared as he was already in the air with his explosions firing to keep him airborne. Nice try, Todoroki. Kirishima yelled out as he leapt forward in a long jump to clear the spreading ice, before it could entrap him. That was naive, Todoroki. Momo commented as she produced a long pole from her palm, and used it to vault herself over the ice trap. Excuse me, sorry, coming through. The purple-haired teen made multiple apologies as he practically parkoured over other students to avoid the ice. Many of said students were already trapped by the spreading frost, and he wasn't going to be one of them. Literally using the trapped students as stepping stones wasn't his original plan, but it wasn't as if the bi-colored teen had given anybody much time to think. Your ice can't stop my sparkle. Aoyama stated while firing his laser and being carried through the air by the force his unique energy generated. Nope. Toga laughed as she used her speed and athleticism to pull off a wall run and make it out of the icebox that the narrow tunnel had become. Hey, that was close. Mina shouted as her special shoes secreted her acid onto the ice. The liquid dissolved the ice and made small, clear patches on the track where Mina stepped. I'm so glad I practiced this. Ichako floated above the track, her weightless form moving quickly through the air from her initial kickoff. Her stomach was already starting to feel bad though, so she'd have to land soon. Not a fan of the cold. Sue stated as she was almost beside Ichako in the air. Her frog form Quirk had easily let her leap out of the tunnel entirely. You think you can get ahead of me, you half-and-half bastard, Bakugo yelled as he set off stronger explosions to increase his speed. More people dodged that than I expected. Todoroki noted as he continued to run. The hybrid quirk user refocused on the track ahead of him before blinking in shock. Izuku had already left the tunnel entirely by the time Todoroki had sprung his trap. He'd landed and started running by the time that the first students had even made it to the end of the frosted tunnel. The verdette's enhanced physicality had not only put him in the lead, it was making the gap wider by the second. When did he? Todoroki tried to recall when Izuku had gotten ahead of everyone. I didn't even see him pass me. Yeah. It seems like Midoriya is already in the lead. He launched himself ahead before Todoroki's ice trap even struck the tunnel. Talk about leg strength. Mick announced as all eyes moved to the monitor, as it focused on Izuku leading the pack by a significant margin. That's what happens when you don't hesitate. Aizawa spoke up. Midoriya determined the best course of action to escape the tunnel was not to run through it, but to use his enhanced strength to make a single leap and clear it entirely. He approved of the quick and rational actions of his students. You think you're so cool, but I've outsmarted you. Mineta called out, bouncing over the ice while using his quirk to make stepping stones. Ha! How pathetic, Todoroki. The purple-headed boy taunted as he took a weird pose. Take this. My special attack. Grape, he was cut off as a large metallic fist slammed into him from the side and sent the pervert of class 1 bouncing along the ground. Target acquired. The mechanical voices of dozens and dozens of robots rang out as a horde of one-pointers from the entrance exam tore through the walls that had been set up to outline the track. With a rumble and huge plumes of dirt and dust, 8 zero-pointers rose from their hiding places among the forest surrounding the track. Ooh, enemies have shown up out of nowhere. We're in for a treat here. It's a test of strength and cunning, the Robo Inferno. President Mick announced while the robots locked onto the students. Are those the zero-pointers from the exam? Kaminari skidded to a halt, along with the majority of the first years. The hero course had to fight those, someone questioned from the crowd of students. This is what they meant by obstacles, another student demanded as they stared up at the towering robots. There's too many. We can't get through. A different student cried out at what they perceived to be an impassable barrier. So, this is what the other students faced in their entrance exams. Todoroki commented as he sized up the massive machines. Where did the school even get the funding for these things? Momo wondered, as she, Achako, and Kyuko looked at all the robots. Before anyone could make a move, Izuku, who had barely slowed down, dealt the first blow to the Robo Inferno. A massive bang went off, and one of the 8 zero-pointers rocked backwards from the impact of Izuku launching himself at it. The verdetted shoulder tackled the mechanical behemoth and sent it reeling. The massive tank threads came up off the ground from the force of the blow. Begging. Izuku stated firmly as both of his hands rested against the robot's metal torso. The metal below him turned red as heat spread through it. The heat radiated outward, forming rings of increasing temperature as Izuku funneled his pyrokinesis into the metal. The center went from dull red, to bright red, to dull orange, to yellow, to bright yellow, and finally turned bright white as it completely liquefied. The fallen zero-pointer was bisected via melting in front of everyone watching the sports festival. Whoa yeah. Mick screamed into the microphone. Barely even slowing down, Midoriya destroys a zero-pointer near instantly. What a display of power and control. President Mick exclaimed loudly. With the obstacle cleared, Midoriya is back on the move, increasing his lead. Many of the watching pro heroes shifted their eyes to Izuku with interest. It wasn't every day that you saw a student like him. I won't let you beat me. Todoroki promised as frost started to accumulate in his right hand and spread across the ground. They obviously went through a lot of trouble, but I wish they'd have prepared something a little more difficult. Especially since dear old dad is watching. He stated with a mocking tone at the end. The ground froze in a large area surrounding Todoroki, and he swept his right arm upwards, sending a blast of ice and frost at 3 of the remaining zero-pointers, just as the massive machines began their attack. The robots stood no chance as the ice encased their metal bodies, and they froze over. With an exhale of frosted breath, he ran between the frozen behemoth's legs as he chased after Izuku. Look, he stopped them. A student called out. We can get through between the legs. Another claimed loudly. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Todoroki warned the group at large. I froze them while they were off balance. He informed in a monotone as the 3 zero-pointers started to tilt over. The majority of the students ran backwards to clear the area as the frozen giant slammed into the ground. On purpose. His final words to the rest of the students went unheard in the racket as he rushed ahead. Todoroki from Class 1 attacks and defeats multiple zero-pointers in one hit. Then he traps his competitors behind a wall of frozen metal with all the other robots. He's definitely one to watch. It almost seems unfair. Mick roared as he stood up from his seat at another display of incredible power from the first-year students. His attack was both offensive and defensive. He made a rational and strategic move to ensure his own progress. Aizawa commented as he watched Todoroki chase after Izuku. That's to be expected of a student who got in through recommendation. He's never even fought those robots before. The Robo Inferno was extinguished by his chart-topping moves. Mick was almost hopping up and down as he commentated. Like hell, I'm letting Isuhide and Deku surpass me. Bakugo yelled as he launched himself over the remaining zero-pointers with his explosions. Bakugo, also from Class 1A, clearly does not intend to throw in the towel. Instead of trying to go around, he goes overhead. Clever. Mick called out as more and more students started making their way through. As expected, 1 and 1B are the fastest to make it through the first obstacle. Snipe noted from the teacher's booth. The other students aren't bad either. Especially the ones from general studies who have a chance to get into the hero course. Toshinori mentioned as he watched the race. But there's a clear difference in training. The hero courses aren't given any time to just stand around. Aizawa was stated as the students of Class 1 and Class 1B tore apart any robot that stood in their way. Momo created a fully functional cannon and blasted a zero-pointer's head into scrap with a well-placed shot. Mina dissolved the head of any robot that got near her. Kaminari simply had to touch them and release his quirk for a second or two to fry the robots. Ida could simply kick most of them aside without much trouble. Kyuka could destroy 2 robots at the same time with her jacks and the immense vibrations they sent into the robots. Sero and Tokoyami used their quirks to follow Bakugo's lead and go up and over the zero-pointers. During the entrance exam, they were seen as enemies to be avoided. If you see them as opponents to be defeated, then they're just large, slow hunks of metal. They're easy to deal with if you make smart shots. Snap commented as he watched even the zero-pointers fall to the students. Now that I've slipped past, it's time to catch up. Toga giggled to herself as she completely slipped through the Robo Inferno without even having to fight. With a thought, she activated her quirk and transformed into Izuku. Izuku had a long lead at the moment, but a glance backwards showed several students closing the gap. Todoroki was out in front, Bakugo right behind him, and another Izuku was behind Bakugo. Wait, what? Izuku blinked before quickly realizing what was going on. Himiko-chan, please don't do anything embarrassing while you're in my form. What's this? Mick yelled into the microphone at the sudden anomaly. There are 2 Midoriyas on the track, what's going on? That would be Toga's, from Class 1A, Quirk in action. Aizawa spoke up as a good portion of the crowd had started murmuring in confusion. When her activation condition is met, she can take on the physical form of another person. It's a perfect copy of the person in question too. All physical attributes, barring the person's quirk, are available to her for as long as the transformation lasts. Talk about next level roleplay. Midnight gushed, making many people in the audience blush or sputter in embarrassment. Moving on. Aizawa instantly shut his old friend down before she could really get going. For those of you who thought the first obstacle was easy, let's see how you feel about the second one. Present Mick held his right hand to his head with a wide grin on his face. The next obstacle seemed to be a bottomless pit. Tall stone platforms were spaced out across the large canyon, but the platforms were so far apart from each other that only a select few quirks would have any hope of jumping between them. In between the platforms were long, thick ropes that moved slightly in the breeze. They weren't even close to approaching stable footing. If they take a spill, they're out. If they want to pass this test, they'll have to get creative. It's the fall. Mick announced as Izuku finished looking over the massive chasm and the tons of rocky platforms that spanned the width of the obstacle. I can handle this. Izuku smirked, fueled by his quirk. He had boundless confidence. Crouching down, Izuku used his enhanced strength to launch himself forward. The arc of his leap would have brought him down somewhere in the middle of the chasm. Flames erupted from Izuku's hands and feet, shocking the audience. With careful control of his pyrokinesis, Izuku flew over the last half of the chasm and touched down on the other side. Incredible. Midoriya gets past the second obstacle as if it wasn't even there. This will surely increase his lead. Present Mick exclaimed while the crowd cheered as the rest of the students started to hit the edge of the second obstacle. You won't escape. Todoroki declared angrily as he blasted himself along the rope line with his ice, trying to catch up. Using this method, he was quickly across almost a dozen platforms and on the other side. Damn you, Deku. Don't think for a second that I'm copying you. Bakugo screamed after Izuku's back. Powerful explosions lifted the ash blonde into the air, and with proper control, Bakugo flew over the entire obstacle. Wow, that's almost unfair. Ichako commented as she watched Bakugo fly over the obstacle. This is no time to be impressed, Ichako. Toga, in Izuku's form, called out to the girl. Ichako blinked at seeing the verdette, knowing he was in the lead thanks to Mick's play-by-play. Let's go. With that, Toga used Izuku's impressive physical fitness, and her own familiarity with taking his form, to run across the rope line in front of her. Truly, Toga's balance was to be admired. Yes. Finally. This is my chance to show what I can do. My support items are going to steal the spotlight from these one-up heroes. A pink-haired girl with thick dreadlocks snickered as she approached the edge. The young lady was decked out in support gear from head to toe. Everyone. Observe what my brilliant gadgets can do. These are my wire arrows and hover souls. You're from support. Ichako couldn't stop herself from exclaiming the obvious. Hey. Would you get to bring all of that stuff? Mina pointed at the decked-out girl. Hero Course students get all kinds of special training. So to keep things fair and to give us a fighting chance, we can bring whatever gear we want. We just have to make it ourselves. The Pinkette grinned brightly at the two girls. Now watch and be amazed. With that, the support course student launched a cable across the chasm to a platform. Her boots activated and lifted her off the ground with powerful, concentrated fans. I hope all the support companies are watching. With that, she launched off the edge and swung through the chasm. When she reeled herself upwards with her wire, her boots kicked up their propulsion and rocketed her into the air. In one shot, the support course girl had crossed half the obstacle. I wouldn't lose, Ichako declared as she ran to one of the ropes and started to cross. That gear is just unfair. Mina huffed as she picked a rope and started crossing too. On the other side of the fall, Todoroki looked behind him to see Bakugo gaining ground. The ash blonde was cursing as he forced his Quirk to keep going. His arms were starting to hurt and his palms felt numb, as if they were asleep. The kickback of his Quirk was slowly building up. Is he still getting faster? Maybe he's a slow starter. Todoroki pondered as he increased his speed more. Damn it. Bakugo growled, noticing that Todoroki was picking up speed. You bastards keep looking down on me. The leading three are keeping their positions, while the rest of the pack remains mostly clumped together. The number of people that will make it through the first round hasn't been revealed, so no one can relax yet. Keep going, students. Mick encouraged the first years. Izuku had gotten to the final obstacle with his legs still intact. He continued to run even as he read the large sign. Danger Mines was on the large white sign in red. With a running start, Izuku only smirked as his Quirk continued to fuel his confidence and pride. With a powerful leap, when that left deep imprints of his shoes in the dirt of the track, Izuku cleared the entire length of the minefield. He didn't even have to use his flames. Landing threw up a cloud of dust, but in less than a second, Izuku was bolting down the track again towards the finish line. I couldn't even announce the final obstacle before Midoriya cleared it. Mick roared in excitement. He just cleared the minefield in a single running leap. What a student. Midoriya knows his limits fairly well. He was able to determine that he could make such a leap in seconds. Aizawa offered his own comments. That's the kind of knowledge that lets a pro operate in the field to their maximum ability. Damn. Todoroki ground his teeth a bit as he slowed and worked his way through the minefield. This shit doesn't affect me, Bakugo declared with a slasher grin as he blasted himself into the air again. His arms were already sore, but the short rest he'd given his Quirk between the fall and the minefield had helped a bit. Don't you dare think you can stay ahead of me, Deku. I can't waste time here, Todoroki decided, and a pillar of ice formed under his feet, launching him into the air. The bicolored teen tucked and rolled when he landed and was back on his feet before the two mines he tripped could detonate. A large platform of ice formed under his feet, and he blasted ahead, leaving a trail of nearly meter-tall ice behind him. He felt his body shiver as he pushed his Quirk harder and harder to catch up with Bakugo and Izuku. Izuku continued to run. A glance behind him showed both Bakugo and Todoroki closing the gap as they used their Quirks to the fullest. With a smirk, Izuku faced forward and went from running to full-on sprinting. The bolt up for death became a blur and kicked up a large cloud of dust behind him as he bolted into the stadium. He saw the finish line briefly, but passed it and skidded to a stop dozens of meters away, before the announcement of his win was blasted out through the speakers. Midoriya makes one last impressive dash as he wins the obstacle race. Mick yelled out as Todoroki and Bakugo crossed the finish line. To Bakugo's rage, the board showed Todoroki beating him by a fraction of a second. The ash blonde growled, even as his hands shook and his arms had a sharp pain in them. Rainbow-colored confetti dropped as the crowd cheered furiously. Izuku raised his right fist in victory. With a proud grin, Izuku looked out over the cheering crowd. He knew many of them were pro-heroes, and he could hear and see their excitement and how impressed they were by his skill and power. He exhaled as he lowered his fist and shrank down to his normal height and physique. He evened out his breathing and let his heart rate come back down to normal, as he watched the next few students finish the race. A girl, with vines for hair, that he was fairly sure was in Class 1B, came in fourth. She was followed by a boy with a skull-like face. The next student to cross the finish line was Iida. The glasses-wearing teen looked less than impressed with his placement in a race of all things. Next was Tokoyami, who appeared to be out of breath. The next person, in 8th place, was Izuku again. Izuku! Toga exclaimed as her transformation burst apart into the strange liquid a Quirk left behind. The girl threw herself into her boyfriend's arms with a beaming smile. Congratulations. You won. I knew you would. You came in the top 10, Himiko-chan. You were amazing. Izuku smiled at her as he pulled her into a hug. Toga only giggled as she snuggled into his arms and relaxed. She'd stop whenever they announced the next event, but until then she was going to cuddle with her boyfriend. The Midoriya home, that's my boy. Hisashi cheered as he watched his son take first place in the first event of the UA High Sports Festival. Izuku, my baby. Inko was a fountain of happy tears as her husband held her close. She was so proud of her Izuku. Hisashi couldn't help but chuckle as he soothed his wife and her penchant for endless tears. As the rest of the students completed the obstacle race, it was revealed that only the top 42 students would move on to the next round of the sports festival. Looking around at the ones that had made the cut, revealed the general studies guy with purple hair that had declared war on Class 1A, the pincat from the support course, and all 40 of the hero course students. Mineta practically collapsed as he came in 42nd place. Toga's sharp ears picked up conversation among some of the business course students that were observing the obstacle race. She grinned when she heard what they were saying. She fully agreed with them, after all. "So, what do you think?" one business course student asked the other two beside him. "Midoriya's stock is going to climb really fast after that showing," the middle teen stated with his hand on his chin. "That's certainly true. His quirk looks to be quite powerful. With such a display of power, enough to destroy one of the zero-pointers in one move, not to mention his speed, reaction time, and judgment, he's certain to climb the rankings quickly. If you took on his agency's management, how would you market him?" The third teen questioned the other two curiously. "He practically markets himself, doesn't he?" The first teen smirked at the other two. "Power, speed, judgment, he's practically top 10 hero material already. He is slightly above average in looks. You could go at marketing from that angle too. With his quirk causing him to bulk up further when it's active, you could even do two different types of marketing when it comes to looks. You could open doors for his agency and bring in lucrative merchandising deals like that." The middle teen mused thoughtfully. "He's obviously in a relationship too," the teen on the left commented, observing Izuku and Toga holding on to one another. "Everyone likes a top hero that's also family-oriented. It's the wholesome angle that makes people smile. You could definitely boost his popularity even further that way. Even the business course can't see how perfect me and Izu are together. Toga grinned happily as she leaned against her boyfriend. While the business course students participated in the festival, for the higher years it was less about trying to win, and more about cultivating their professional instincts. Things like selling merchandise or doing marketing simulations during the festival were common. It was all about getting good enough to promote and market the heroes of tomorrow. Now that we have our top 42, we can start the next round. It is unfortunate that not everyone can make it in, but we have to cut the numbers. The next competition begins soon, and the press will be all over it. Give it your all, students," Mick announced to the crowd. "Now, let's discover the second round event." Midnight cracked her whip as the wheel on the display began to spin rapidly. Everyone watched on as the wheel spun. The sudden stop revealed the event, and everybody was quick to read it. "Cavalry battle, a cavalry battle. Oh man, my quirk isn't very good for those," Kairomaru mumbled despondently. He was better at crowd control. If he had to worry about teammates, then he'd have to limit his quirk usage by a lot. Since it's not an individual event, how's it going to work? Suyu questioned curiously, unknowingly voicing the thoughts of several others. "Allow me to explain. The participants may form teams of 2 to 4 people, as they wish. It's basically the same as a standard cavalry battle." Midnight explained the upcoming event, as the screen showed an image of 13 holding up All Might as the horse rider with present Mick and Snipe supporting him from behind. The main difference being that based on the results of the first game, each person will be assigned a point value. "So, we're just racking up points like at the entrance exam. That's easy enough." Kirishima nodded along with Midnight's explanation. "That means each team is worth different points depending on who is on the team." Jiro noted as she listened on. "I get it." Mina beamed with her fists in the air. "I am still talking. Weren't you taught not to interrupt someone when they're speaking?" Midnight violently cracked her whip, glaring at all of the talking students. "But, yes, that is completely correct. The points assigned start at 5 for the student in 42nd place, and then go up by 5 from there. That means the 41st place is 10 points, and 40th place is 15 points. Okay, then simple math. Since I was first place, that's 5 multiplied by 42, meaning that I have 210 points." Izuku quickly calculated out his score as the first place finisher of the obstacle race. "Not quite, Midoriya. You see, there's one exception to this rule. The point value assigned to first place is 10 million. Midnight gave Izuku a sadistic smirk while pointing her whip at him. Izuku suddenly felt all eyes turn to him and focus intently. In his mind's eyes, everyone had turned into shadow-like silhouettes with bright red eyes. He felt a tinge of nervousness at being the target of literally everyone else. Then he felt Toga squeeze his hand, and the nerves vanished entirely. He looked at his girlfriend and received a bright smile in return. They would face this together. "That means as long as you have the 10 million headband, you automatically win," someone said just loud enough for everyone to hear. "That's right. It's survival of the fittest, where even those at the bottom can overthrow the ones at the top," Midnight declared with a wide grin. "So, it's everyone versus me and Himiko-chan. Ha. Bring it on. We won't go down without a fight." Izuku smirked at the other 40 participants. Toga gave them all a slasher smile as well, and several people flinched back from the pair. "You'll have 15 minutes to form your teams and strategize, use them well," Midnight informed the teens before a timer appeared on the large screens around the stadium. It started to count down, and many people quickly rushed from the stands to go to the bathroom, or to grab some snacks from the concession stands. All proceeds went to UA and helped fund the school after all. "Achako-chan." Toga skipped over to the brunette with a devious smile. "You coming with us?" She grabbed the other girl's hand and started guiding her towards Izuku. "Ha? What? Toga-chan." Ichako flailed slightly as she was brought over to Izuku. While Toga was securing Ichako, Izuku was accosted by a different girl. "Haha. Just as I thought, this is great. You stand out really well." Mei grinned as she hovered over to Izuku on her hover soles. Izuku actually flinched backwards as he turned to face the girl only to find her inside his personal space. "Can I help you?" Izuku asked the pin cat curiously while leaning back from her. "Team up with me, Mr. 10 million. Mei grinned manically at the tall boy. "Who are you?" Izuku questioned as the girl hovered in place. The pin cat laughed as she stepped back and pulled her steampunk-style goggles up. Izuku could now see her eyes, which had unique yellower eyes, with what appeared to be a crosshair naturally formed in them. It must be part of her quirk. He mused and kinda wanted to ask her about it. "Me? I'm Hatsume Mei, from the support course, and the one that can take you to victory," Mei declared with a wide grin and a thumbs up. "And how's that?" Izuku raised an eyebrow at the energetic pin cat. "I don't know you beyond those delicious 10 million points you've got, but you've got to let me use your position." Mei once again got into his personal space. "At least you're honest about why you want to team up with me." Izuku blinked at the support course student. "Of course. If I wasn't, then you'd have no reason to trust me. Plus, if I team up with you, then I'll inevitably become part of the team everyone's going to be watching the most, right?" Mei grinned widely at Izuku. "That's probably right." Izuku acknowledged and watched the girl's eyes gleam. "Well, then, when that happens, all of my super cute babies will be seen by all the big support gear companies. That's free publicity for me and for what I can do you understand that?" Mei was once again very close to his face. Much to Izuku's relief, Toga had returned with a Chako at about this time. His girlfriend didn't look very amused by how close Mei was to her boyfriend. She grabbed the pin cat by the scruff of her shirt and pulled her about 2 meters away from Izuku. The hover soles made this very easy for the blonde. When she had Mei far enough away from Izuku, Toga glared into the other girl's eyes. "Who are you and why are you so close to Izuku?" Toga demanded of the other girl. This led to Mei introducing herself again, and both Toga and Ichako were slightly taken aback by the girl's manic personality. "The support course develops the equipment that helps you heroes use your quirks to the max, and I have tons of babies, so I'm sure that I have something you are going to like." "Oh, I see this one's caught your eye." Mei smiled widely as she picked up what appeared to be a jetpack. "I made this baby based on some hero's gear, but I added my own original twist to it to make it work a lot better." "Wait, are you talking about the Buster hero, Airjet? I like him, too." Izuku smiled at Mei. Toga couldn't stop the grin that formed on her face. Izuku was going to start fanboying over heroes again. "You do?" Mei tilted her head at him. "Yeah, his agency is close to my home, so I went on a tour a few years ago." Izuku smiled brightly. That'd been a good day for the hero fanboy. "That's nice. By the way, my quirk is Zoom, which allows me to see things at 5 kilometers away or teeny tiny things while I build my babies. Useful, right?" Mei gave a brief rundown of her quirk to her teammates. "That's an interesting quirk." Izuku agreed and really wished he had his notebook to jot it down. "But this isn't the only baby I have." Mei pulled out a whole case of different items to show her team. "Any of them that you pick will benefit you greatly," Mei promised with pride in her eyes. "Ha, I think I have a plan thanks to this." Izuku mumbled as he looked over the devices that Mei had available. "Huddle up." The 4 of them quickly gathered around to listen to Izuku's idea. The loud buzzing sound of the timer going off filled the stadium. Everyone in the stands quickly refocused on the stadium floor. All of the teams had formed, and several of them were clearly eyeing Izuku's team. "Time's up. The 15 minutes to gather your team and strategize are over. Now, let's get the cavalry battle started." Midnight announced to the students and the crowd. She was going to have to focus for this event. Refereeing an event with 12 teams of teenagers ready to fight each other was no simple task. Hey, come on, wake up, Eraser. The second round is about to start." President Mick shook the dozing Aizawa awake. "It's now time for the cavalry battle to begin. We have 12 teams lined up on the field," he exclaimed to whip the crowd up. Mick was a consummate showman. There are some interesting teams out there," Aizawa commented as he took a few seconds to look at the teams. "Now, raise those battle cries. It's time for the bloody battle," President Mick declared, and the crowd roared in excitement. "You're exaggerating. I doubt that there will be that much bloodshed." Aizawa gave a side glance at his old friend. Mick ignored him entirely as he continued to fan the flames of the cheering crowd's excitement. "Here are the teams," Mick called out as the screens around the stadium flipped to show the names of each team and its members. As everyone read the team names, many were shocked when they saw the name of the team at the top of the list. This was supposed to be the team with the most points. In this case, it should be Izuku's team. But that wasn't the name on the screen. "What the?" Several people blinked as they looked at the team name. Team Toga. Everyone had expected Izuku, as the winner of the first event, to become a rider in the cavalry battle. But Izuku had chosen to become the front horseman, with Ochako on the left, Mei on the right, and Toga as the rider. Damn, Deku. Running away from me, Bakugo was gritting his teeth at the decision that Izuku had made. He had been one of the people that expected Izuku to be the rider. How was he supposed to take on that damn nerd if he wasn't the rider? Tie on the headband anywhere from neck up, Toga hummed as she sat atop her team with a wild grin on her face. One knot, double knot, triple knot, quadruple knot, quintuple knot undone. The blonde was pleased with her handiwork. Her headband was now more like a choker around her neck. Even if someone got a hold of it, they wouldn't be able to just pull it off. Alright. Every team is ready to begin. I'm not going to ask if you're ready or not. President Mick yelled loudly, stirring up the audience as they eagerly anticipated the beginning of the sports festival's second round. Now, let's go. The countdown to the brutal bloody showdown begins. You're exaggerating again, Aizawa drawled as the countdown began. As the timer ticked down, Izuku looked back to his teammates, confirming they were all ready. They each nodded, and Mei had a wide grin on her face. This is going to be so great. Everyone is going to see my babies in action. Mei gushed happily. Her hover souls were on Ochako's feet, and her jetpack was on Toga's back. As soon as the cavalry battle started, they'd be off. I'm ready. Ochako nodded as she touched Mei, Izuku, and Toga. A pink glow briefly surrounded each of them as her quirk took effect. 3. Mick began the countdown. 2. Midnight called out. 1. The entire stadium roared. Izuku smirked as his body bulked up and heat began to exude from him. Not nearly to the level he could take it, of course. He wouldn't want to endanger his teammates after all. Begin. Midnight yelled as she snapped her whip with a loud crack. The 11 other teams all rushed Team Toga in unison. But what else would be expected? Having the 10 million headband was an instant win. Every team wanted it. Now it was only a matter of which of them would get it. Everyone's gunning for the 10 million points right off the bat. Mick exclaimed loudly as everyone watched the rush. Midoriya, I'll be taking those points, thank you very much. Toru declared from her place as rider on her own team. The invisible girl was going topless to try and obscure her body. The fact that the headband was still completely visible kind of made that tactic fail though. All within expectations. Mei laughed at the other teams rushing towards them. Hover souls on. Ochako started floating off the ground by a few centimeters. As the only one with any weight on her team, she would use the support gear to assist with mobility, while keeping everyone else weightless. Jetpack, go. Toga exclaimed with her right hand raised and her index finger pointing towards the sky. She clicked the control in her left hand, and the mostly weightless team flew into the air. What the? Many students cried out in shock. They can fly. Kaminari cried out from Todoroki's team. Woohoo. Toga whooped with joy as her team flew high into the air. Aren't my babies amazing? Mei was practically sparkling as she saw all of the attention their team and by extension her babies were getting from the stands. They're awesome. Toga declared with a smile at the pink cat. She cut off the jetpack's power when Izuku tapped her leg. With careful control of his flames, he matched the output of the hover souls that Ochako was wearing. The nearly weightless team began a slow, controlled descent from over 100 meters in the air. It looks like the plan is working, Midoriya. Ochako smiled as she looked down at the stadium. We're too high up for anyone else to reach us. Once we're in range they'll start gunning for us again. Izuku turned to look at the brunette with a grin. So we'll have to be prepared for that. Don't you worry, my babies can handle that too. Mei almost cackled as she handed 2 gun-like items to Toga and 1 to Ochako. The Pincat took one for herself too. Capture net guns. If any of the other teams have Reacher members that can fly, we can tangle them up in one shot. Your babies are awesome, Mei. Toga grinned wickedly as she looked over the 2 capture items in her hands. This plan wouldn't work without Ochako's quirk either. Izuku praised the zero-gravity quirk user. It's no problem. Ochako smiled brightly at her team. I think we'll be in range soon though. Sure enough, the first-place team was floating back into the stadium, and 2 specific teams both took notice. Todoroki glared at Team Toga as he directed Iida towards where the group would land. Bakugo didn't even wait for that. As soon as he determined that Izuku was within his quirk's effective range for flight, he launched himself into the air. Deku. Bakugo roared as he blasted his way through the air towards Team Toga. Nope. Toga grinned darkly as she aimed one of her capture net guns at the asshole, as she thought of him. Bye-bye. She pulled the trigger, and the round rocketed towards Bakugo. What the hell? Bakugo roared as the round exploded into a red net in front of him. Before the net could ensnare him, he let off a powerful blast to tear through it. Get that shit out of here. He roared only to see 3 more rounds coming at him. He blasted himself upwards to dodge the first net, juked to the side with a large blast to avoid the second, and then stopped his explosions entirely, and entered free fall to dodge the third. He had dodged all of the nets, but at the cost of moderating his quirk for flight. With a snarl he used lighter blasts to slow his descent, so that Sero could grab him with his quirk and reel him in. Would you at least warn us before you do that? Sero yelled at Bakugo. If you fall too far away you'll hit the ground before I can reel you in. He's right. Mina declared with a huff. You'll get all of us disqualified if you touch the ground, you know. Bakugo, you've got to chill, bro. Kirishima tried to stop Bakugo from exploding verbally against his own teammates. I know you want the 10 million headband, but if you get disqualified it won't matter. Damn it. Bakugo seethed as he urged Kirishima after Team Toga. Midoriya, I'll be taking that headband. Todoroki stated coolly as his team raced towards Team Toga with Iida as their frontman. So you say, Todoroki. Izuku replied with a look in his eyes that made Todoroki glare at the verdette. That look just screamed that Izuku had no doubt that he could keep Todoroki away. With a swing of his right arm, Todoroki sent a wave of frost towards Team Toga. The call was met with a wall of fire that swept over the field. The opposing forces clashed, but the heat of the flames won out. Only steam remained of the ice that Todoroki's quirk had formed. With a grimace, Todoroki prepared to wall off any escape routes and prevent other teams from interfering. Walls of thick ice surrounded the two teams in seconds. A loud string of curses, followed by explosions, let everyone inside know just how Bakugo felt about being blocked out. Iida, can you get us close fast enough to snag the headband? Todoroki questioned his frontman. I have a move that I've been saving, it'll only last for 10 seconds, and after that I'll be useless. Iida mentioned to his team leader. If we use it with this much time remaining, I don't believe we'll be able to protect the 10 million points. I'll handle it. Todoroki stated as he breathed out frosted breath. Just get us close enough. The plan didn't even begin before a wall of flames rose between the two teams. Team Toga rocketed back into the air, escaping the box of ice walls, and was far out of reach once again before anyone could do anything about it. Todoroki almost snarled at seeing Izuku's team escape. It was Momo that brought up a good point. How are we going to get out of these walls you've made, Todoroki? Momo questioned the two-tone rider of their team. Everyone in Class 1 knew that Todoroki had something against using the left side of his body, the fire quirk that it held. No one wanted to pry too much, but if he didn't melt the walls with his left side, then Team Todoroki was functionally out of the cavalry battle. Boom, an explosion blasted a hole through the wall of ice behind them, as Bakugo finally forced his way through the barrier. The ash blonde looked royally pissed off as his eyes scanned the inside for any sign of Team Toga. Not seeing them, Bakugo glared harshly at Team Todoroki. Where the hell is Deku? Bakugo demanded of the other team, his palms crackled with small explosions. His team flew out of here a second ago. Kaminari replied, and everyone saw a vein bulge out on Bakugo's forehead. What Bakugo yelled so loudly most of the other teams flinched at the harsh sound. Turn around, Kirishima. We're going after Deku. Hurry up. Alright, you don't have to yell. Kirishima turned their group around and headed back out of the ice walls. On the bright side, this does get us out of the trap you made. Kaminari tried to look on the bright side. Todoroki's cold look as he urged Iida out of the hole in the ice wall dimmed even Kaminari's usually upbeat attitude. Unbeknownst to the two teams chasing after Team Toga, another team was rather stealthily making their way around the battlefield and snatching headbands. The team was a very unlikely one, but the rider on top wasn't the one in control. That job went to the purple-haired teen on the back right. Another one down. Shinso grinned as Mineta, their rider, tied another headband onto his head. The lower half of the short teen's face couldn't be seen anymore with how many they had. I must admit, this is going very well. Tokoyami, the frontman, commented as they jogged away from another trapped team. Truly magnifique. Aoyama grinned while sparkles seemed to dance around the blonde. I wish you stopped controlling me. Mineta complained to Shinso. If you stick to the plan and stop perving out, then I wouldn't have to. Shinso snapped back to the short boy. Now put your head down again. Your stature makes it really easy for you to hide behind Tokoyami's quirk. Mineta pouted but did as told. Leave defense to me. Dark Shadow caught with its arms spread wide. I'm going to get into the hero course, no matter what it takes. Shinso thought to himself as the time continued to tick down. The combination of his brainwash, Mineta's pop-off, Tokoyami's Dark Shadow, and Aoyama's Naval Laser let them trap opposing teams, make them hand over their own headbands, defend against attacks, and keep other teams at a distance when necessary. It was the best strategy that Shinso could come up with after only seeing their quirks during the obstacle race. The simple fact was, that of the initial 12 teams, only 5 still had headbands of all. That proved that their strategy was effective. They would be in second place easily. Shinso had pushed himself mentally and physically through the ringer nearly every single day, since he'd failed the hero course entrance exam. He worked out, practiced parkour, weight trained, studied everything he could think of that would be useful to a hero, from strategy and tactics all the way to critical thinking and investigative reasoning. He wouldn't fail again. I refuse to give up on my dream. Shinso thought as they jogged away from the remaining battles. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.